The mayhem that broke out during the much-awaited reunion of Love and Hip Hop was unimaginable. What started off as a glamorous, celebratory, and concluding evening swiftly descended into an explosive catastrophe that left cast members reeling and viewers stunned. The drama between Yandhi and Rashida was supposed to be the main focus, but nobody anticipated that Mandy's would enter the middle of a furious storm that would conclude with flashing police lights and hand restraints. A heated debate between longtime friends descended into a full-scale fight that stunned everyone on set as emotions ran high and tempers boiled. You could cut through the tension with a knife, and things took a bad turn when security didn't intervene promptly enough. One might reverse it. Rumors began to circulate as fans watched the cast's live social media events, and soon the headlines verified the unimaginable. For reportedly attacking Rashida during the reunion recording, Mendy was taken into custody. How did things get so out of control? Quick, what caused this startling incident? And what does this portend for hip-hop and love in the future? You won't believe what transpired behind those closed doors, so stay tuned. There had been a lot of excitement when the evening began. With the reunion set was a hive of activity as the actors prepared to perform. For months, fans had been anticipating this moment, anxious to see the reunion of their beloved celebrities and to resolve all the tension that had been simmering behind the scenes. However, nobody could have predicted how rapidly things would get out of hand. There was a tension that caused everyone in the room to shift uneasily as soon as Yandhi and Rashida's eyes met. Whispers began, buzzing that old wounds were about to be rekindled, and not even the creators could foretell how terribly it would end. Yandhi deliberately sat exactly across from Rashida, with her arms crossed and her eyes squinted, while Rashida, attempting to maintain her composure, sat rigidly on the sofa. Before quickly the petty insults began to flow. Rashida was accused by Yandhi of betraying him by speaking behind her back. Their alleged fraternity for followers and stardom. Rashida retaliated with equal vigor, hurling charges of deceit and phony friendships into the air. The crowd let out a gasp. Members of the cast watched anxiously. The reunion host made a valiant attempt to refocus the discussion on more secure topics, but it was too late. Menzies, who had been occupying a side seat, became tight at once. Everyone knew he had a short fuse when it came to defending his family, and he detested seeing Yandhi in any form of misery, particularly in public. He first remained sat with his hands clenching on his lap and his jaw tightened. However, when Rashida something within Min BC exploded as she got up and walked toward Yandhi, pointing a finger in her face and escalating her voice. The precise moment he got up from his seat was captured by those watching the event live, face twisted with rage. Witnesses said it occurred so quickly that security hardly had time to respond. Men VC yelled for Rashida to retreat as he rushed across the stage. The situation escalated when she turned toward him without retreating. They spoke loudly enough to overpower the host's desperate cry for peace. Rashida was then reportedly pushed by Menzies so forcefully that she stumbled backward in a flurry of motion. The whole set fell into disarray. A few actors hurried up to yank DC's away as Rashida was shocked and enraged as others attempted to assist her. As yelling and accusations erupted, security eventually succeeded in swarming the stage to keep everyone apart. Yandhi, who was obviously trembling, attempted to enter men's but was stopped by crew members. Meanwhile, Rashida yelled that she would not allow this to be ignored and asked that the police be contacted right now. Backstage, tensions remained high as both sides' friends and relatives started quarreling, with some even come to blows on their own. Officially, the reunion, which had been billed as the season's most important event, was finished. However, the drama was not yet over. Police were on the site in a matter of minutes, radios buzzing and lights blazing. As uniformed cops pushed through the masses to enter the studio, fans outside started filming. Now, Mendy sees it was soon surrounded by people who were obviously calmer but yet apprehensive. According to reports, he first attempted to clarify the circumstances, stating that he had simply taken action to protect Yandhi and that items had become unmanageable. However, the cops were left with little option since Rashida immediately filed charges and had other witnesses to support her account of events. Mendeshi's hands were handcuffed as cameras recorded every tragic moment. Yandandi was heard pleading with the cops while crying. Recons. Soon, handcuffs would be all over social media, causing fans, celebrities, and business insiders to respond in a flurry. Within hours, hashtags like Justice Frida and A Freeman BCEs were popular as the internet split into two fervent factions. Some supporters were indignant about Men's behavior, demanding that he be removed from the program, and perhaps facing severe prison time. Others vigorously supported him, claiming that the issue had been exaggerated and that he was merely attempting to protect Yandandi. Proportion. As many live feeds, tweets, and Instagram stories examined every aspect of the dramatic confrontation, emotions were running high. Producers frantically worked behind the scenes to handle the escalating public relations crisis and attempt to save the reunion show. Just hours after the event, Rashida went live from her dressing room because she couldn't keep quiet. Her cheeks was still flushed. Thousands of followers watched in real time as she told her side of the tale. She maintained that she had never put Yandi in danger, violently and charged Mendesk of exaggerating and attacking her without justification. She pledged to file full charges and, if required, take the case to trial. "I'm not going to let this man think he can put his hands on me and get away with it," she replied, her voice shaking furiously. Yandandi took to social media as well, sharing a heartfelt video in which she defended Mendescas and begged viewers to comprehend the circumstances. She wiped away her tears and, "He was just trying to protect me," she said. "Although things went out of hand, he is neither a violent guy or a terrible person." Her remarks generated even more controversy, with some admirers supporting her and others charging her with condoning poisonous conduct. As time went on, additional information surfaced. According to insiders, behind-the-scenes turmoil that never made it onto the program has been the main source of animosity between Yandandi and Rashida for months. Secret alliances, betrayals, and jealousies had all contributed to the powder cake that erupted at the reunion. Formerly friendly cast members were picking sides, and the whole hip-hop and love family seemed to be about to fall apart. Menik was charged with assault and held overnight as he awaited his first court date. Sources close to him claimed he was horrified by what had transpired and was concerned about the effect on his family and career. He had put forth a lot of effort to rebuild his life after prior legal issues, and it seemed that everything was in jeopardy once again. Yandandi, meanwhile, was said to be distraught, afraid, and to blame herself for the whole thing. About what would happen in the future. The next morning, a small contingent of supporters gathered outside the courtroom, screaming pro-men's rights chants and brandishing banners. As Yandi arrived, looking exhausted yet resolute, the media poured in, cameras blazing. Rashida, too, arrived with her crew on her side, her face grim and unreadable. As everyone awaited the next development in this drama, the air was heavy with anxiety. Fans surrounding the courtroom grew hushed as the judge summoned MenVC's case. Desperate to find out what would happen next, everyone held their breath. Every seat in the courtroom was filled by reporters, spectators, and worried relatives who had come to see what would undoubtedly be one of the most startling incidents in the history of hip-hop and love. The gravity of the situation was evident on MenDC's face as he stood before the court with his head lowered slightly. With her hands held firmly in her lap and tears on the verge of spilling, Yandandi sat in the first row. Rashida across the aisle observed with a steely eyes, without displaying the slightest trace of doubt or fear. The prosecution quickly presented a negative image of what transpired during the reunion recording, characterizing Mendes's behavior as hostile, hazardous, and unprovoked. Video footage from backstage perspectives that captured the moment Menzies came forward and pushed her was given by Rashima's crew. The prosecution underlined the importance of leading by example, contending that violence could not be accepted, particularly from well-known public personalities who had millions of followers. However, the defense lawyer for MenDC presented a very different picture. He said that guys had acted out of emotional exhaustion, thinking Yandi was really risk. He drew attention to the fact that Rashida had approached Yandi first, acting aggressively and raising her voice in her hand, which may have been seen as a threat. The lawyer begged for mercy, requesting that the court take into account Meneshi's moral fiber, his attempts at change, and his love for his family. The judge listened intently, sometimes raising a furious eyebrow at Menezes. The air was so heavy with tension that it was difficult to breathe. After a few excruciating minutes, when the judge finally spoke, he said that while the men DCs would be freed on bond, they would still be charged with severe crimes. The courtroom was filled with a collective gasp. While Menzies' mother gripped her chest and muttered prayers, Yandandi started crying. Beyond the commotion broke out in the courtroom. When someone wanted to speak, reporters pressed microphones into their faces. Rashida momentarily forcefully declared to the audience that she would not be intimidated and would pursue this lawsuit to its conclusion. She said, "Nobody, no matter how famous they are, gets to put their hands on me without consequences," in a fixed voice. Security, meanwhile, swept Yandi away, hiding her face from the incessant cameras. Once again, social media went viral. Whether Menzies had really intended to hurt Rashida, or whether he had just lost control in a tense moment, fans analyzed every aspect of the court proceedings. Celebrities also started to voice their opinions, with some strongly supporting Yandi and Menezes and others supporting Rashida. The hip-hop community was split by the drama, with friendships breaking out due to the pressure to choose a side. Love and hip-hop producers had to deal with a nightmare behind the scenes. The season's high point was meant to be the reunion episode, but suddenly they had to deal with a real criminal case that was directly related to their program. There were rumors that the network was thinking about removing the whole incident out of concern about criticism and possible legal action. Meetings were taking place late into the night. Contracts were being examined, and the franchise's existence seemed to be hanging in the balance. Equilibrium. Men from DC, who are now free on bond with Yandandi and their family, withdrew to a secluded area. On the advice of his attorneys, he declined to speak in public, but many who knew him said he was distraught. He repeatedly reenacts the scene in his head. "I wish I could take it back," one buddy stated. He has no desire to harm anybody. Because he believed Yandandi was in danger, he just lost it. At home, the atmosphere was somber. Despite her best efforts to be strong for her kids, Yandandi was plagued by worry and uncertainty all the time. Would Menezes wind up behind bars again? After battling so hard to restore, will their family be torn apart once more? Her heart jumped into her throat each time her phone rang with a fresh alert. Investigating their background, reiterating previous accusations, and portraying Mendes as a repeat offender, the media was unrelenting. Rashida, meanwhile, leaned into the limelight. She provided her side of the tale in exclusive interviews, highlighting her conviction that no woman should never have to worry about her safety, particularly in a work environment. For many followers, she became a symbol of fortitude and tenacity, and they showered her social media with encouraging words. She was contacted by companies and groups that supported women's empowerment, who gave her venues to talk about her experience and push for reform. As the days went by, more information became available. To illumination. There had been simmering conflicts between Rashida and Yandandi, according to leapt texts. Long the powder cake environment had been fueled by envy over endorsement agreements, betrayal charges, and even personal slights involving family members prior to the reunion, whispered by insiders that, in an attempt to increase viewership, the producers purposefully put Yandandi and Rashida on stage together, despite their animosity. An even greater outrage resulted from this disclosure. The network was accused by fans of putting the performers in risk for dramatic effect and putting financial gain ahead of public safety. Some even demanded that the show's boycott be held accountable for how the manufacturers had contributed to the violence's pretext. In response to increasing criticism, the network issued a well-crafted statement apologizing for the event and promising to improve safety procedures going ahead. However, the harm had already done to men's DCs. His already shaky image from previous legal issues suffered a serious blow. Deals for endorsements were halted, relationships were re-examined, and there was even speculation that the network may cut off any contact with him. According to friends, he was troubled by the fallout from that one hot moment and spent hours looking into space, scarcely speaking, and sliding into a profound despair. Yandi remained firmly loyal despite the tumult. Refusing to leave many, she remained at his side. She sent heartbreaking comments on social media, pleading with supporters for understanding and prayers, even when it seemed like everything was against them. She wrote, "This is not who he is. He deserves another opportunity since he is a wonderful guy and a decent parent, even if he committed a mistake." However, Rashida is unaffected. Determined to see males in DC held responsible, she persisted in pursuing the legal case. According to industry rumors, Rashida was even thinking of bringing a legal complaint for mental anguish and harm to her image. The repercussions for males may be considerably more severe if that occurred, and he could lose millions of dollars. Conflicts between their boiling point was achieved by the various factions. At one industry party, a furious altercation between members of their entourages almost occurred, but security had to step in before fists were raised. It became evident that the conflict was about more than simply Rashida and male VCs. It had turned into a full-fledged conflict between two influential hip-hop groups. Both parties dug in their heels as the trial date approached. One of the best lawyers in the city was recruited by Rashida. Men's legal team, notorious for their brutality in court, rushed to assemble a defense, obtaining expert testimony, character witnesses, and any other material that would challenge Rashida's account of events. Nothing could have raised the stakes more. With bated breath, fans devoured every court document that was published, and every mysterious, every insider gossip, Instagram post. The destiny of love and hip-hop itself, as well as the fate of men, was at stake. Everyone was curious as to whether Mendes could turn his life around, or whether this was the end for one of the most complex characters on reality TV. Furthermore, tensions only increased, emotions became more erratic, and the drama became more dramatic as the trial date drew near. The morning of the trial dawned gloomy and somber, as if the sky itself sensed the weight of what was about to unfold. Hours before the trial, crowds gathered outside the courtroom. The proceedings were about to start. Others are rallying behind Mendes's placards, while others are waving signs in favor of Rashida, desperate to get a peek of the two main characters. In this real-life drama, reporters fought for position that has engulfed the country. Tension buzzed within the building like static electricity, giving the slightest action a sense of importance. First to come was Menz, who wore a plain black suit and had a serious but calm expression. With her hand firmly grasping his, Yandandi was at his side, providing quiet support. Their family members marched gravely behind them, their expressions masking resolve and fear. Shortly after, Rashida came in with her close friends and legal team at her sides. She was wearing a clean white dress and had an unbreakable look of peaceful defiance on her face. The air between them seemed to freeze, heavy with unsaid hatred and betrayal, as their eyes momentarily locked across the courtroom. The opening comments at the start of the trial set the tone for the fight right away. Rashiva's lawyer portrayed her as a victim who had been assaulted without cause, highlighting the psychological and bodily damage the event had caused. Adopted her. He emphasized that letting males off the hook would send a terrible message to fans and viewers worldwide, and he talked strongly about the duty of prominent personalities to set an example. In response, Men DC's attorney presented a story of miscommunication and misguided allegiance. He maintained that Men C's had behaved in a way that anxiety for Yandi's security, responding impulsively to anything that seems dangerous. He encouraged the jury to take into account Mendes's attempts to change his life after making errors in the past. Context, as opposed to passing judgment on him after a single heated incident. Witnesses started to testify. The already convoluted tale becomes even more difficult with each witness. Members of the backstage staff reported a tumultuous, emotionally charged setting where tempers were prone to erupting. During cross-examination, one producer acknowledged that cast member conflicts had been purposefully heightened to increase drama for the cameras. According to another crew member, Rashida was heard making threats. Early in the evening, Yandandi. He was unsure of the precise terms spoken, despite being questioned extensively. On the stand, Rashida herself exuded strength. She expressed her terror as men DCs surged at her in a straightforward and moving manner. She explained the physical force, the humiliation and horror of being assaulted in front of her peers and the whole country. As she described the aftermath, the restless nights, the worry and the public scrutiny, her voice broke. She was determined not to seem weak, as shown by the tears that welled in her eyes but did not fall. The room held its breath until Menzies' time to testify. He chose his words carefully and spoke slowly. He apologized to Rashida immediately and conveyed his sincere guilt for what he had done. Court. Despite his inability to discern Rashida's precise movements, he clarified that he had taken her approach toward Yandi as a threat. Speaking on his worry of being separated